Good morning and welcome to today's vodcast. I am Kristin Smith.
I am Paul Asay.
And we are plugged in. So today we are talking about Captain Marvel, the latest superhero movie that perhaps you guys have seen. I have yet to see it, but Mr. Paul Asay, our in-house expert, has seen it. And there have been a lot of positive and negative reviews on this on both sides. Paul, what did you think about the movie?
Yeah, you know, for me, as a superhero person, I have always really appreciated the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think they've done a really good job of creating this universe that is compelling and really works from movie to movie to movie.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, in some ways, throttles back that magic a little bit, I think, because for me, Captain Marvel sort of lands in the middle of a big arc in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You had Infinity Wars, Avengers Infinity Wars, that did something really traumatic.
Yeah.
You have Avengers Endgame that is going to be doing something really spectacular.
Next month, right?
Next month.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel is one of the most powerful figures that to ever enter into a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and she's going to play a huge part in Endgame. But because of that, the movie felt like it was really a bridge between these two things. And so because of that, the story wasn't as fleshed out as it could be. That said, it was still fun, it was still entertaining, it had some nice elements to it. It had some problems from a plugged-in point of view. As with all these movies, it was violent, and the language was a little bit worse than I would have expected. So those are things, if you're a parent, you're looking to, whether you want to see this movie or not, I think that's something to be aware of, for sure.
Well, one of the major themes is female empowerment, obviously. So we have this central female figure she's the main point. We want to see what's happening in her life.
She's the main character, right.
So again, as far as that is concerned, there's been a lot of both positive and negative. People haven't been excited about this all around, which has been a little shocking. So what did you think about that aspect of the film? Yeah,
from my perspective, I really love to see strong female characters on screen. I think that they just make for compelling characters. You know, I'm drawn to them. I'm drawn into their story. And Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, is a really strong woman, a strong character. It is all about female empowerment, and I think that in a lot of ways that is extraordinarily good. I saw a lot of really good messages here. They talk about never give up, to push on, to keep fighting the good fight, and those messages, I think, can resonate with a wider audience, of course, but I think for a female audience, they're particularly resonant, and I think that in a lot of ways, I think it really worked.
Well, there was one aspect that we talked about where you said you weren't really sure about the message. Could you tell us what that was and why you felt that way?
There was one scene that I thought really, it sends the movie on a different trajectory in a certain respect. It happens pretty far on in the movie, right? Carol Danvers, she's down on earth. She's talking with one of her very best friends, historically best friends, Maria Rambeau, I believe is her name. And they're trying to decide whether Maria is going to go up and fight this alien race with Captain Marvel. And originally Maria says, you know what, I think I'm going to stay back and stay with my kid. She's a single mom. She has a daughter, an 11-year-old daughter named Monica. I'm going to stay back and be with my kid. And the kid, Monica, she says, you need to get out there and fight. What kind of example does this set for me? And for me, that moment struck me as a little bit off-putting, to be honest with you, because I think that in some ways it went from saying women can do anything to women should do this thing.
Which is kind of the opposite of choice, right?
Right, exactly. So in some ways it's saying, you know, motherhood is fine and all, but staying home with your kid isn't nearly as important as fighting these aliens.
Right,
and I think that went a step too far for me.
Yeah. Well, I know that obviously she's a single mom, right? So she had one of two options, right? To stay with her daughter or to go out and fight, and there are a lot of single parents that don't have a choice.
Right.
But the thing that I think you said bothered you was that she could have died, right? And then her daughter would have been left alone.
That was one thing. Yeah, I think that was one of the elements that I think was bothersome. I don't think that there's a better use of time than spending it with your kids. No matter what else is going outside the world, I think that spending time with your kids is so critical and so important. And one thing that I really liked, we had mentioned this a little bit earlier off camera, is The Incredibles 2, right?
Yeah.
Which we saw last year. That really dealt with this message incredibly well. I thought.
It did a really good job.
You know, you have this hero, Elasti-Woman.
Yeah, I think
she
so.
goes out and she does the good fight. She fights the bad guys. She does all this sort of stuff. Meanwhile,
Well, Dad's at home.
Mr. Incredible stays home.
Yeah.
He's not really at peace with that, but you see through his story how heroic that is in its own way.
Yeah.
You know, and I think beautiful how he deals with his daughter's issues, you know, her relationship issues, how he coaches his son in math. I thought that was just wonderful.
And how it's just as difficult, right? Like,
exactly.
like the job, just because you're at home, doesn't mean that it's any less hard.
And
both
just
are
as
heroic.
important.
Right.
Just as important.
Yeah. Well, other than that fact, there was also the spirituality, which this guy could drag spirituality out of like a rock.
Toast.
So, toast. So could you tell us about some of the spiritual themes you saw in Captain Marvel, if any?
Yeah. I think that actually, in some ways, Captain Marvel was a little bit softer in the spiritual element. You know, so many characters really lend themselves to sort of a spiritual interpretation. Superman, Iron Man, Batman, which we could talk a lot about if we wanted to. But Captain Marvel sort of throttles back. At the same time, there's, I think, a nice spiritual message that we can take away from that. You know, you have the Carol Danvers character. We see through the course of her story how much she has been knocked down, dragged around, belittled, demeaned. You see these elements throughout her past life. We get the sense that she is not so much a hero. I don't think that the movie really developed this, incidentally, as much as it could have. But we get the sense that Danvers isn't so much a hero because of her superpowers, because of her plasma fists, but because of the person who she became through adversity, through these trials. And I think it really echoes what Paul says over and over again, how we should celebrate even the suffering that we go through, because through that suffering, our character is built, and through that character we find new hope.
All right, well, that is Captain Marvel of what we know of it now. So if you guys haven't seen it, you can check out our review at PluggedIn.com before you take your kids to see it if you're interested. You can also check us out on YouTube. Thanks so much.